It's Simone again from Technical Writer HQ. Today I have the lovely, lovely Alexis Gage with us, and she's going to tell us all about her background, where she started with a degree in English and psychology, and how she now evolved into a technical writer working for a department in the government. So, Alexis, tell us, what is your background academically, and what it is that you do right now in your role as a technical writer?
Sure. Background wise, I have a degree in English. Made sense to me, always been good at it. So I just stuck with what I was good at. And while in college, I found an internship as an editorial assistant. I had no idea what it meant, it just sounded cool. And that's when I kind of realized you can write anywhere. You can be in a science setting, you can be a math setting, you can be in a government setting, you can be in private sector. Um, and that's when I realized this is what I wanted to do. Um, I have supported many, many government clients, from Department of Defense with Air Force, Army, and Navy, to the FDA, to the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services. And currently, I am now at the Department of Energy, specifically the National Nuclear Security Administration.
So, in all of these departments that you've worked at, what was the thing that drove you to actually work with those departments? Was it the work they were doing in the local community, or was it more of an alignment with what you wanted to do as a technical writer?
I always look at the projects. What do I get to write? Is it stuff I know? Is it something new? I have my own dream sheet of things. I would love to be able to write a speech one day. Um, I would love to get to write SOPs. I have wanted to do ghostwriting. I have wanted to work on online content. Um, and specifically with this one, what caught my eye was the fact that it's not just SOPs. I'm writing reports that go to the White House. I'm writing congressional hearings. I'm writing policy, um, which is something that, as a writer, gives me that diversity. I'm able to say confidently, I've written SOPs. I have written your policy statements. And those are big things that when you're looking at jobs, when people are looking at your LinkedIn or whatever job profile you have, those are things they're looking at that catch your eye, especially in government. All government writing tends to be very similar. The data may be different, but you will find SOPs everywhere. You're going to find policy everywhere. And when you tap into that, people start to notice.
I love that. I love that. I love when you said you write policy. So you're saying some of the work you've actually developed has either changed or accelerated policy that actually affects us as citizens in this country. That is amazing. That's a really good motivation to become a technical writer. And some of the departments that you work at, you did mention when we reached out to you that you have an active security clearance. So was that something that you were required to attain to start working in those departments, or was that something you attained on your own to start working in these departments? Chicken or the egg? What was that for you to get your security clearance?
Um, for this particular position, there are different types of security clearances. It can be as simple as public trust, and that would be something you find a lot at the county or city level, or you may touch something with people's names and phone numbers. That would be public trust. And it can go all the way up to top secret with SCI, with polygraph. And that means you are handling government secrets. So this particular position, I already had a secret clearance, and that is good for 10 years. I had that with my first internship back in college. And that was sponsored by that agency. So I went through, and every agency may be different on their requirements. So my secret clearance came from the DoD side of the house. You'll go through all your training, and what you may be touching may be different depending on what contract or what agency you're supporting. And then when I received this position, they put me up. So they sponsored me to go through the top secret SCI process. Um, so my clearance transferred over, but essentially for the first 10 months of working here, where my office is located, I could not be by myself. I was escorted everywhere. So if I had to go to the bathroom, someone had to walk me out the door. I had to knock, someone would walk me right back to my desk. We call it line of sight. So there was always someone watching me for 10 months until the investigator finished my background check. I had to put down all my contacts. I think I had to put down 5 different contacts, and then they contacted other people. My employment history for the past 10 years, they contacted all my employers. They looked at financial records. They look at psychiatry records. They look at medical records. You are opening up your life just for this type of job to attain that clearance. And it's worth it,
That was
especially
my
for the
next.
type of science that we're
That was my
doing.
next question. That was
So,
my next question. Was it
yeah,
worth it? Was it worth it? Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
it is absolutely worth it. And once you have this clearance, it's good for 5 years, and then you'll go through a renewal process. So, the policy that I'm writing towards, everything that my department handles, we are on the top secret side. So, when you have this type of clearance, it opens up a whole other set of doors. You become more competitive. It means your writing has reached a certain level. The jobs you are able to apply to, doors open. You're not just on LinkedIn. You can work with all these different types of agencies that other technical writers may not be able to, solely because they don't have the clearance. There may be some people who currently, I just have my bachelor's. I'm waiting to get started on my master's, but because I have this clearance and they don't, because I've worked with this agency and I know what they may need, it may open other doors for me that some other people may not be able to open.
That is incredible to know because I think in today's age of the gig economy, I think knowing that there's this incredible door opener into like a field, into a space that you actually want to be into, I think that's incredible to share. How was that experience for you? You talked about going to the bathroom escorted, like
Yeah.
it was very invasive. Was the payout on the back end, like you said, the door opening worth it for you? And would you do it again? Like, would you continue to maintain that clearance?
Um, yes. Those 10 months, I want to maintain this clearance. I I enjoy where I am. I enjoy the work that I do. Those 10 months, I did not expect it to take that long. And there are other people who have been waiting longer than me. The clearance is dependent upon a bunch of different things, what the investigator finds out. So some people it's shorter, some people it's longer, but it's worth it to get it and to maintain it, solely because the contacts you're making, the type of writing you get to do, the level of importance, on that front, it's incredibly worth it.
Yeah. And that's a perfect segue into like what you're actually doing day to day. So from what you can share, can you let us know the types of documents that you get to write on a daily basis, like long term, short term, like what types of documents do you have to typically write with that type of clearance?
Yeah, so I work in the Department of Energy Headquarters Emergency Operations Center. Um, So, for any type of emergency operations center, you have to have your policy. You have your standard operating procedures, which are SOPs. And you will find that across the government. There's always an SOP. An SOP explains what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be doing it, why you're going to be doing it, the who, what, where, when, why, how. You have your job aids. We use a lot of equipment, a lot of communications, a lot of networks, both secure and unsecure, within our space. So we have job aids, so which I write, We go through an annual review checklist process. That's part of what I have to do. Um, and make those updates and implement the updates and update the books, the binders, online material. That all falls on me. That's my responsibility. Um, the job aids answer how we're going to be using this telephone versus this telephone, and a step-by-step process. As we have new people join us, as we gain new equipment, it's a tool we use for training. And then, even networks, we may not use one network for 1 month and you may forget, and that's okay, but that's why we have the job aid. We write a lot of reports. The reports are a daily thing, a lot of PowerPoints, a lot of, like I said, policy, and we work together with other departments, other divisions. So it's not just us. So this is where government loves plain language. We don't, it's nothing fluffy, it's nothing extravagant, plain language. If you can take, I highly recommend class. You will use GSA style, you will use Chicago. I come from APA, I am a researcher. So switching to this, I had to take the plain language writing class because I love transitions. I love saying furthermore. I love saying overall. That is not something we do here. You have 30 seconds to get your information across, because if we have a bad day at work, it could mean someone's life. That's what emergency management is. They want the who, what, where, when, why, how, bullet points. They want it now. So we don't want paragraphs. We want get to the point as quick as you can, no errors. So learning that is a big thing as well. And then again, using one voice. If you're working with multiple departments, how I may write is going to be different from someone else. Someone else may be a subject matter expert with, the physics, or with the institutional knowledge of the Department of Energy, but they may not be the strongest writer, and that is okay. But this is where you get to come in. This is where you say, I need your knowledge, I need your knowledge, I need your knowledge. And you're going to write that one thing that is going to represent not only you, but your division director, your chief of staff, your administrator. So you are ghostwriting something that someone else's name is going to go on.
That is, oh my goodness, what you said, the last thing about being a life or death situation. So your
Mhm.
writing can actually dictate whether people make it through a large emergency. That is incredible. I want to circle back to something you said earlier. You said it's not just writing. You talked about SOPs, reports, things that are going to a very high level, but you said organizing the documentation as well and using job aids to actually guide a new user through the documentation. Because
Mhm.
I always say on these calls, people think technical writing is you and a laptop and go. And from what you're saying, it's not. Can you elaborate a little bit on how the organizing the management of that documentation also plays a role into your daily role as a technical writer?
Absolutely. Where we work, SharePoint is a big tool. I've used Box in the past. We are not allowed to use Google. So Google is not something we use, solely for security reasons. And then we also have some secure network side. I know a lot of agencies also use something called Web EOC. Um, so we take all these tools, and if you use SharePoint, you have folders. You save your documents into the folders. So part of my job is saying, okay, let's go through, and within 2 clicks, we want to be at our document. Okay, well, how are we going to do that when we have a procedures channel? We have memos, we have job aids, we have our guidelines, we have policy. So going through and making sure that it's not just me as a technical writer in there. We have a team of watch officers. So I take my time, I do my research, I talk with the watch officers who are in the office answering the phone when people call in. Um, how can I help you? What would be beneficial to you so that I can implement it? I do a lot of observing. It may just seem like you're standing around. I take a lot of notes. I have a notepad and a pen, and I am writing down, let's do this, let's not do that. And then I go back to my computer. Simply just jotting down notes, because you may miss something, but if you write it down, you can always go back. I ask a lot of questions, not just what's going to be beneficial, but what is your deadline? What do you need? And half the time, some people may not even know until they see what you're doing, and they can say, no, I don't like that. And you have to start over. And that is part of the process. They may not know. You were given a very, minimal amount of information, and you ran with it. I have a lot of freedom to do what I need with this. So going back and organizing all this, I had to learn their processes. I had to learn all this information. I had to try to implement this information so I can create something that works for my coworkers.
I love that. I love that. So organizing the documents, managing the documents, staying abreast of changes with the notes. Something else that you mentioned, going back to your point about plain language course that you took. What would you say is the difference between something where it's a critical emergency life or death situation, writing in a technical space, and maybe something for, I don't know, social media or marketing? What are those differences that came up during that course and that you implemented in your technical writing to date?
Well, my department does not handle social media, so that's an easy one. We are not even allowed to have a website. Within Department of Energy, we have a public affairs office, and same with the NNSA side. Even though they're under Department of Energy, they have their own communication public affairs office. What I may do is I may structure emails that go out, and then those get published to public affairs. And it's all for security reasons and everything. There's certain things that we're not allowed to do and put out. Plain language is, and this was offered within our building. We are offered a lot of free courses on SharePoint, Excel, Word, within Department of Energy. And this is not only for federal workers, but also for contractors like myself. And I decided, why not? Let's see what this is. It looks fun. So basically it all goes back to, how are you writing? Let's get to the point. You need to have your subject, your what, and you need to have your why. And you're going to set that up with your how. So when you go back all the way to elementary school and they have the who, what, where, when, why, how, yes, you will use that every single day in this type of setting. So for emergency operations, our who could be, who is our audience, who is affected by whatever incident is going on, what happened to them, where, location, why is this relevant, and how is this relevant? Well, something happened at one of our sites. This is what's going on. And this is how we formulate our reports, essentially, is answering those questions. Plain language will tell you, less than 20 words per sentence. Commas are 10 cents. Periods are always free. That was their favorite phrase to use. And I took that to heart.
Hold on. Say that again. Say that again. Say it again.
Commas are 10 cents. Periods are always free. Just make sure it's a complete sentence, because then I go through everything within my department, and complete sentence is hard. I understand. You know what you want to say, and this is where us as technical writers, we know or it's our job to know how to say it. Excuse me. My 2-year-old is home with me.
That's flexibility.
The beauty of technical writing.
Yes. Before the call, we're both moms, and we both talked about how having remote and flexible work actually allows us to be more involved and more engaged in our world as a technical writer. So kudos to you handling everything out today. I know you had a sick kid today. So I think technical writing is very much a viable option that allows us that flexibility to do what we love and still take care of everything on the home front. But okay, that's gonna be my new thing. 10 cents and free. Okay.
Yep.
In your you also talked about like your writing style was research style, which tends to be more flowery, more fluff. Was it
Mhm.
hard for you to kind of cross over to the dark side and kind of limit your words and be more precise, or did you find it more freeing that you had less time, 2 seconds to kind of get to the point? What was your experience transitioning through that?
When I initially started, I was the first technical writer within my department. My department has 4 divisions. I was the first one to join. Um, our department answers to the chief of staff's office. So the chief of staff's office, when they hired their technical writer a month after me, um, she was the one who basically said, "Hey, we need to implement this." And all the departments didn't really have a choice. We weren't brought in on that. Um, so I had to learn to say, okay, um, contractors, you want to make your client happy. Otherwise, it's going to be a different conversation. So I
True.
fought this as hard as I could. I had my director on board to implement APA, and our building is a bit unique. We have an office called Executive Secretariat. They handle all communication that leaves Department of Energy. They have created an online archive library, which they maintain for Department of Energy. So I went and spoke with them and said, "Hey, can you explain to me why I'm being told I have to use Chicago, why I can't use APA? I love how nitty gritty APA answers. We put our comma here, we italicize here, we use Roman numerals here. It explained so much to me. I felt like Chicago left a lot of things like that open ended." And they said, "Well, if you look at government writing, we defer to GSA, and then we defer to Chicago when our answers are not answered. And a majority of time, our answers are going to be answered that way. Or you can simply go look in the archives that we have at past different types of writing." Okay. So at one point, it took a while for me to adjust. And I was told, you're going to get some leeway, ask your questions, work with the subject matter experts that are there to help you understand the why and how. Simply because the science that I handle every single day is new to me. But I like to believe that as a technical writer, the science should not matter because you're equipped with the skills and the tools to write. Yes, it helps to learn the material, but you can learn as you go. If I'm writing an SOP for the FBI versus Department of Energy, I know what an SOP is. I know how to structure it. I'm going to take a bit more time learning the new science from the FBI versus Department of Energy, as an example. And then once I took that plain language course, everything just kind of clicked for me. It made me understand why I needed to do this. Because as a writer, I was used to the research background, not the plain language. They were taking all the fun out of it for me. And then I realized, okay, this is why I have to do this. And no one really understood why I had to until I spoke with another writer who was leading this course. So I wish I would have reached out to them sooner because they could have explained this so much sooner to me, or so much quicker to me, sorry. But that's okay because now I understand. So now I can take a project, I can run with it. I don't have to ask the question of what tense am I using? Do you want one voice? My question now is what's my deadline? And what template do you want this in? Is it classified or unclassified? And I go.
So what I'm hearing is that not it So one, the technical, more complex content you can learn as you go. But two, it actually frees you to gives you more time to learn that complexity because everything else is answered. This is an SOP. This is a challenge. This is an
Yep.
email. This is a whatever. And so that has been laid out for you. And so you can actually focus on closing any of those like technical or science gaps. So that's really incredible that you're saying that. So we have about a few more minutes left. Any suggestions, tips, last minute insights you want to share with our listeners from your journey starting out in English to getting that security clearance, sticking it out for 10 months into the bathroom,
Sure.
and then now on the other end? Any last tips for us?
Sure. I have heard in the past that, technical writers are considered specialists. The one thing about being a contractor, and depending on what contract you get, there's not very much job security. And typically, the specialists are the first ones to go. That has happened to me in the past. A project funding was cut short, things happen. And then when I landed this role, I was told, you aren't just a specialist, you are essential to the team. You are the orchestrator of the orchestra. You bring all the music together so that it makes sense. Um, so don't ever let anyone tell you you're just a specialty, or you're not, or you're not needed.
Oh gosh, oh gosh. All right, so we're going to wrap this up because we have other people making demands on our time. But thank you so much, Alexis. Commas are 10 cents, and periods are free, and you are the orchestra of the entire symphony. As a technical writer, I'm going to live with that. So thank you so much for taking some time out with us this afternoon. We wish you a lot of success in your future roles, and thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Take care.